Okay, use the graph of the function y equals f of x shown in figure 8 and estimate the following limits. This is what they call a piecewise function because it looks like I have a piece, this piece right here, from here to here, but if I kept going, that looks like it could be a parabola right there. But I don't have the whole parabola, I only have a piece of it. Also, this chunk right here, if I continued it too looks like it could be a parabola, but it's a different parabola. This one's concave down. But again, I don't have the whole thing, I just have a piece of it. And then this is clearly a line which I could draw across the entire graph, but I don't have the whole line, I just have a piece of it. Now, when you're looking at the three pieces separately, this one goes from here to here. Every one of those x coordinates is somewhere between -6 to 0. But your y coordinates change. If you're at this point right here, his y coordinate is whatever that is. When you're at this point, his y coordinate is whatever that is. When you're at this point, your y coordinate is below the x-axis. But as you keep moving, your y coordinates start, let me give a different color for this. Your y coordinates start here and get lower and 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 lower, but then they start to come back up again. What you're ultimately getting closer and closer to is right here. I hope that makes sense. As I'm getting closer and closer and closer to it, my y coordinate is getting closer and closer to 0. Now, you'll notice that this says the x, find the limit of the function as x approaches 0, and they have this minus sign on it. That means you're approaching it from the left, which would be from -infinity. This means you're approaching it from the left side of the graph, so from left to right, which would be that green function, because 0, I'm approaching the 0. Let me erase all this again. You're approaching 0 right here. That's what you're looking at. And that is 0 for both x and for both y. So as you're moving along this function, not only are x coordinates getting bigger, but your y coordinates are changing. They were up here above the y-axis, or they were above the origin, and then when you're here, they're below the origin, but then they come back up and end up at 0. So that's 0. Now, when you look at the next one, which says find the limit of f of x as x approaches 0 from the positive side, that means you're coming from the right, because on the x-axis, furthest to the right is positive infinity. So now we're coming at this from the other side, which would be from here. You're going from here to here, and as you're approaching the x coordinate, remember, let me go back to, let's use yellow again. Every point on that orange function has an x coordinate that starts at 2 and gets closer and closer and closer and closer to right here. When you get to this point right here, the y coordinate is actually a 3. From the left, remember, you're wanting the limit of f of x. That means what y coordinate is the function actually getting closer and closer to as the x coordinate gets closer and closer to 0. I'm getting closer and closer to 0 from the left, and when I actually get there, my y coordinate is 0. But from the right, when you're coming from the right, I guess I should have put this in green, sorry. when you're coming from the right, when it finally gets to a x coordinate that is 0, the y coordinate is the 3. So I guess to color code things correctly, this was in, there you go. Okay, now it says, examine the graph to determine whether a left-handed limit exists. My left-handed limit was the green, and it did. It got up to 0. Examine the graph to determine whether a right-handed limit exists, and I did do that. Boop, and that was the 3. And then it comes down to where it says, if the two one-sided limits exist are equal, then there is a two-sided limit, what we normally simply call a limit. Because these are not equal, this one was 0 and this one was 3, then the limit does not exist for that first one. Now I've got 6 more I got to do. So I'm already at the 6-minute mark, so I'm going to stop this video and do a second part to participation activity number 2.